Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to our FP&A Trends Webinar. My name is Olga Rudakova. I am FP&A professional, data storytelling trainer, and dashboard design consultant. I'm happy to facilitate this event for you. And today's topic is the power of 5, essential roles for FP&A team success. It's great to see so many of you joining tonight. We have almost 350 registrations from 50 different countries. So thank you all for being here. What we can expect tonight? Let's have a look at our agenda. First of all, we are going to speak about FP&A team and finding the right mix. Then we move on to FP&A reinventing ourselves. Then we will speak about technology and how it can help elevate our FP&A roles. Believe me, all those presentations will give you some food for thought. After that, we'll have key takeaways, actionable insights, and recommendations from the whole event. And eventually, we'll have interactive Q&A session. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. By the way, you can start right now through question box in our GoToWebinar. Joining us tonight will be 3 experts who've been at forefront of building and evolving their FP&A teams. They're here to share real-world examples. I'm pretty sure that today's session will be very practical with first-hand experience. Let me introduce our speakers to you. I will start with Connor Hopkins. Connor is a head of business planning and reporting at Western Power. Connor has over 20 years of experience as a finance professional in the UK and Australia. Connor, I'm glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Olga. Olga, I'm very happy to be here.
Great, let's move on to Amarnath. Amarnath Kamath is CFO for Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines at AXA Group. Amarnath is a finance leader with over 25 years of diverse experience. Amarnath, thank you so much for joining. And the third speaker of the evening will be Vince Randall. Vince is a regional vice president for Workday Adaptive Planning. Vince has over 20 years of experience in technology and enterprise software companies in a variety of sales and technical roles. Vince, thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, and thank you, Olga, for the opportunity to spend with your members.
Great. What we can say, first of all, we will start with big thank you to our technology sponsor. It's Workday Adaptive Planning. Adaptive planning helps you to solve your greatest business challenges. Let me briefly introduce our FP&A Trends Group. For those of you who don't know, we are not only webinars, not only digital community. We actually are face-to-face community present in 32 cities, 18 countries, and on 4 continents. Besides that, we have endless educational resources, research, and consulting. So please take your time to explore more. What we can expect today in our 1-hour webinar. You will participate in 2 interactive polls on the webinar subject. You will have an opportunity to ask our speakers questions. You can start right away. You can continue through the whole webinar. Presentation is already available in the handouts section, and it will be shared with you together with the recording after the meeting. Before you leave, at the very end, please don't forget to take part in our brief survey, literally 1 minute or so. Your feedback is very valuable to us. Well, I will start with a short reminder of those 5 roles I'm constantly speaking about, what we actually mean by them. Through our FP&A Trends Research, we found that there are crucial 5 roles for our FP&A teams. The one you certainly know, the classical role of FP&A analysts, supporting traditional FP&A functions of planning, forecasting, analysis, helping with decisions. But now it's being supported with 2 more technical roles that move this analytical capability to completely next level. One of them is FP&A architect, the one who is bridging finance and IT, allows us to use modern tools and allows to use them properly. We certainly will speak about how technology can enhance this role and many others. Another role is the role of data scientist. That is the one that builds a bridge between finance and data science. And again, modern technology made a huge step enabling that. There are 2 more roles, interpersonal roles, that allow us, FP&A professionals, take more active seat at the table. One of them is the role of storyteller, the one who actually connects numbers and strategic decisions, who allows us to present financial insights through stories. And another one is an influencer, a powerful role that affects our strategic decisions, influences often without authority. So let's speak about how we can develop those roles within our teams. And let's speak about how we can build those effective teams, because it's never about roles alone. It's about teamwork. And I really would like to finish with a quote from Michael Jordan. He said that talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. So together today, we'll discuss not only individual roles, but how we can build effective teams. How can we find the right mix? And who can better do that than Connor Hopkins, our first speaker of the evening, will speak about FP&A Team, finding the right mix. Connor, it is yours.
I'll take it away. Thank you so much, Olga. So like Olga introduced me, I'm Connor Hopkins, Head of Business Planning and Reporting at Western Power. A little bit of context for this, because as you'll see, I've put change is the only certainty. It's because Western Power is a utility in the southwest of Western Australia, around the Perth region, if you're familiar with that. And we transmit and distribute electricity, and this industry is going through a lot of change because of all of the decarbonisation and renewables that want to connect to the grid. I won't go into a lot of detail on that because that's not what we're here for, but as an FP&A professional, we're going through a lot of growth in the organisation. The strategy has changed, and that means we need to change with it. To give you a little bit of an idea of that change, the stat here on how big our workforce is of 3,200 was back in June last year. We're now at about 3,500, and if we could actually fill the vacancies we had, we'd be more than that. So that really brings into focus what we need to do in our professions to find out whether we can enable that growth and all of the change that's going on. So if we were left with that question, and me in particular with my function, is do we have the capability, do we have the capacity, and do we have the competencies? So in the following slides, I'll take you briefly through how we tackled that mixed question. So the first step we took in looking at finding that right mix of people is to revisit what our purpose is. So like I said, the strategy changed. We had to think, well, are we still aligned? So we did some workshops and we thought about what do we want to be? What's our why? What are our objectives? I did those workshops with my leadership team. And one of the key things we came up with was we want to be able to be more proactive, produce much more quickly the scenarios and the future focused foresight that the business requires. And with that, also maybe move away from all the hindsight, what we used to do. But the more important thing that we identified is we wanted to do it by utilising technology. That meant how can we utilise artificial intelligence, more machine learning? We want predictive forecasting. So that's how we started to identify who we were, what our why, our purpose, and then also how we want to do things. A very important part of that process was actually also finding out what our stakeholders thought. And did they know what our purpose was and what we did? And it was very enlightening, because what it showed us is that we had gaps. So where we thought we were starting to move towards providing the real insights from our data and our analysis, we actually found out that a lot of them didn't know we did it, which was a little bit bemusing. But it did tell us that maybe we needed to strengthen our storytelling and in particular, our influencing. And that led us to think about our operating model and our service delivery model. So on the next slide, I'll start to explore a little bit more on the people mix of that. So what we started to think about, well, if we're not really getting out there with all that we're doing, but we think we've got the capability there, was it then a mix of the competency with those capabilities? If we've got it, have we actually set ourselves up for success to get it out there and get it out to the business and really serve what they needed? So on the left-hand side, you've got the basic skills that we have in my function. And I should point out, we don't do the financial accounting or the corporate finance either. But you can see we've got the traditional FP&A type analyst roles. We also have estimators, and we have people who do all of the costing and unit rate analysis as well. So the question was, if we need to build up our tech ability and our digital capability, but even more crucially, our ability to go out to the business and really tell the story, influence, build relationships, does that mean all of our people need all of those competencies? And to what level? And really the conclusion I've come to, and I've been thinking about this over quite a few years, is that it is really hard for one person to encapsulate all of those skills. For instance, can you really have a data analyst who is also completely across the business and is an expert at influencing, negotiating and supporting for decision making? Possibly not. And likewise, should one of our estimators be the expert storyteller, or also conversely be able to drill down into all of the data and analysis as well? It doesn't necessarily fit with their roles, and it can be very hard to be the best of everything. Don't get me wrong, those people do exist, and I have worked with some who are absolutely brilliant at going out, meeting with people, building relationships, influencing, reading the room, and they know how to put their hand to a bit of Python and SQL as well. But they're rare and they rarely stick around. So the conclusion we sort of got to was, rather than trying to force people out of their comfort zones, out of their usual, where their flow is, like for a lot of data scientists and data analysts, they don't really want to have to go out and speak to people on a day-to-day basis. I mean that in the best way, but they'd prefer to be with their computer. So that's really where we got to, is it's really about putting the right mix together, but aligning the teams so you get the best output from them. Find the synergies. And on the next slide, I'll attempt to sort of show you how we went about that. And it was grouping people more to do with their expertise and almost like a center of excellence. So we looked at the outputs of what they're doing rather than necessarily their roles. And then also started to think about, have we got the role design, job designs correctly articulated as well? So what you'll see in the middle is, in that circle, is the grouping of the sort of outcomes that we do in our function, the analysis, the trends, the insights, the performance monitoring. That group of people, although a mix of different roles, tend to be more focused on the storytelling. So there's an emphasis on the storytelling skill set and building that competency in that group of areas. And what they do is actually end-to-end of our forecasting, very much the whole financial planning and analysis, from the inputs to your forecast, the building of the unit rates, right through to the consolidated reporting, reports to our executive, the board, and to our external stakeholders. So you can see why it's the storytelling competency that we've started to pull those people together there. And even if you're an analyst delving into unit rates, there's an element of storytelling. But they will work with the other group around the explanation and decision support skill sets, who are the more influencers, and probably a little bit more operational in what they do. They will go out, understand the business, know their needs, but use the work of the other teams to say, we can see something's going on, and this is what we think is going to be the impact of it happening. So we're grouping that mix of influencers and building that capability together, because one of the aspects that I really want to draw upon by grouping these people together is the synergy and building on the capability that they already have, and teaching each other as well. And of course, the third one, which is I talked about earlier, is what we wanted to build upon and really start to make an impact with are those data architects and the analysts there. The data scientist part we're developing. We don't have data scientists per se. We have probably what you would call citizen data scientists. They are not they're not shadow IT, but they work very, very closely with our data analytics and ops people in our IT function. And they enable a lot of what the other two areas do as well. So that area is growing, and what we've also found in there is a really great ability to help the business also draw upon that skill set. To give you an example, we've got an analyst in there who is effectively embedded with our property and fleet function. And that person knows that business really, really well and is able to build a lot of dashboards and reports specifically for them. But they draw upon the collective knowledge that's sitting in the group in my function. And the benefit of that too is I get access to all the data and the other teams get access to it. So we can actually pull together the knowledge and see what financial impacts we have from it. So I think that's basically how we've gone about looking at finding synergies and getting the right skill mix together. So hopefully you can see from that how you can start to group your key competencies of the storyteller, the influencer, and architect together, but not necessarily try and wedge it into the one person. I think on the next slide, we can skip through. Sorry, Olga, I didn't give you the prompt. I'll just try and sum it up for you. So when you're looking for the right mix, I would strongly recommend that you revisit your purpose or your why. And it will really depend on what's happening in your organization and in the environment as a whole and how big it is. But it's really worth visiting that every now and again and checking that you're actually doing what your stakeholders need, because you might get surprised. Definitely consult internally within your own department, and definitely with your external stakeholders with that. Have a look at your operating and current service delivery models. It might actually be hampering the wealth of skill set you have sitting in your function and may not be helping them develop that influencing and storytelling techniques. So it might just be a matter of tweaking your function alignment and job descriptions to enable that. And lastly, I've brought this one in because I truly believe this for all FP&A. If you haven't done so already, bring in the foundations of tech, digital capability, machine learning and predictive forecasting. I think is going to be so important for all of us in the future if you haven't already started delving into it. We're setting ourselves up to really start to develop in that area, and I think it's imperative for us to look at that. And lastly, be flexible, be prepared for change, because the industries around us are changing so much at the moment. And I think it really helps also to prepare your teams for that change as well, that we always want to continuously improve and continue to find that right mix that's going to enable us to be the best FP&A professionals for your organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. I'm pretty sure that it was inspirational for every one of us, thinking of how can we group people strategically, how we can put these mini teams together so really we can get synergies out. Thank you so much for that. And it brings us nicely to the first polling question of today's webinar related to the topic. So let me launch it, and we are going to speak about the main challenges in building multidisciplinary teams. So let's have a look at this question. It goes like that. What is your main challenge in building a multidisciplinary FP&A team? Is it finding talent with the right skill set, or integrating diverse roles effectively, or budget constraints for new hires? Or maybe it is a lack of support from senior management. Let's see which answer is most relevant to our audience. What is your main challenge in building FP&A team? Finding talent with the right skill set, integrating diverse roles effectively, budget constraints for new hires, or lack of support from senior management. I see that already most of you have voted, so it's time for me to close the poll and to share the results with you. I'm pretty sure that you will be, I don't know if you will be surprised. Let's see, the most of you have voted, 43% have voted for integrating diverse roles effectively. Another big portion of votes, 31, is for finding talent with the right skill set. 17% have selected budget constraints, and another 10% voted for lack of support from senior management. Connor, what do you think? Are you surprised by the results?
I thought number one would be higher. I thought that would be the standout one, finding the talent with the right skill set. I think we're all challenged by that at the moment, but I definitely understand integrating diverse roles effectively. It's a bit like what we're talking about, getting that right mix. It's a forever changing field. So yeah, like I said, I thought number one would be the standout one there.
Right. That's an interesting result. Thank you all for voting. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. And we can move on to our first discussion. So we will ask other two participants, Amarnath and Vince, join us on the camera, and we will discuss with all of you the topic of how do you identify and address skill gaps within your FP&A team. Before we build this right team, before we find this right mix, we certainly need to identify our skill gaps. Let's start this question with you, Amarnath. What do you think?
So just as Kona said, the primary thing is the purpose of the organization and what they're trying to achieve in the long and medium and long run. So obviously, you decide your operating model, and then to achieve your goals, what are the skills that you need? So you identify that, compare it with the existing skill sets that you've got. And then if you do, obviously, you're going to have some shortages there. You have to decide whether you can retrain your existing workforce or you have to look out. That's where I would map. And that's what we kind of did in our organization as well.
Nice. I'm really looking forward to your presentation, sharing more on that. And let me move on to you, Vince. What do you think? How can we identify and address skill gaps in FP&A teams?
Yeah, I think what resonated quite nicely for me there was probably the storytelling piece, right? And I feel that the role of FP&A, and it's something I've heard it from thousands of customers and very passionate about, is the fact that I feel that FP&A as a function is really, it's the hub of insights right now in your business, right? It's the one point where you know what's going on in your business, and therefore, and you're the only person in the organization that you got so much power in the data and the insights, you know, that kind of was getting at there with you, right? So you have this opportunity, I feel, in front of you to really make a difference, right? And I think, you know, because I think what your business wants from you is your ability to pivot the organization, right, as you react to the constantly changing environment around you. And I feel those, you know, it's identifying perhaps early in the process those that have a real knack for data, for insights, and potentially they have that storytelling ability that could be coached within your business, you know, and I think the point that Connor made around technology will enable you, which I'll touch on a little bit later. I feel that if you find those you know, those gems in your business, I feel, you know, there's just so much more that's going to activate that for you long term.
Right. Thank you for your answer. It's very pleasing for us FP&A professionals knowing that we hold all these gems in our hands. And back to you, Connor. What do you think? How can we identify and address skill gaps?
I think we identified it by asking some of our stakeholders, because clearly, we thought we were doing all the insights and analysis, and we just weren't translating that in the right way, because they didn't see it as that we were giving that to them at all. So that's one way. And I guess the other way is you can do it through competency frameworks, and there's quite a few professional bodies that actually have them. CIMA has a great one that I've used before, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. CPA has one. AFP, and I know FP&A Trends, you've got a maturity model that can be useful to use as well. So there's a lot out there that you can actually pull on already to help you identify it. And addressing, obviously you can go the traditional training route, but we also like sharing the knowledge and doing knowledge shares at works. Because that's a really good way of actually building each other's capability and capacity as competencies at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you for all your answers. I think that all together they give you absolutely complete guide on how to identify the gaps, and it allows us to move on to the next presentation of today. It's presentation by Amarnath Kamath, and we will be speaking about FP&A reinventing ourselves. Amarnath, it is yours.
Hi again, everybody. So I use the analogy of food because I love food to kind of tell you the story that we had while transforming our organization. So on the next slide, you'll see a quote which talks about cooking and how the cooking changes the cook as well as the food. So similarly, in the finance transformation, it not only affects your processes and products, but it also affects in a very large way the people. So this is a very important aspect that you need to keep in mind. On the next page, I will explain to you what we did, or rather why we did the change that we did. So you might have heard quite often these questions or comments that come from your business. They might be saying that the finance does not understand what's happening out in the real life market. I do not get a report that give me any actionable data. I don't get my reports on time to make any decisions. And finally, many people say that we are just a scoreboard keeper who just records the score rather than doing anything proactive about it. So what's happening is the businesses are transforming very, very rapidly. They are getting digitized. And what I find is many organizations, the finance is not evolving as rapidly, and we are still working the way we used to work 10 years back or 15 years back. Especially after COVID, the rate of change has been very, very rapid. So we faced this similar situation, and what we did is there in the next page. So what we did, first the structure. So again, you will find many similarities with what Kona presented. So you will find a lot of overlap. So I'm happy that we are following a template which is more common and not something very, very special. So the first one we decided to change was the structure. So we split our teams into three different kind of structures. One was for the routine accounting like accounts payable, accounts receivable, GL, etc. We kind of created a shared service center and we moved all the people there so that it was cut off and it was kind of a regular job which was being done. It was moved to a country where we had benefits of economies of scale. We also had a cost-effective country where we had saved on cost, and we could have segregation of duty because we had a larger team. So we could, design our processes in such a way that we could have proper segregation of duty and control, which was not possible if we had separate teams by countries. Secondly, we developed a central team of specialists, and these specialists could specialize in areas such as tax, could be pricing, could be project management. So these were specialists who were working in a central place. And finally, at the customer facing side, we created an organization of finance business partners. So these guys worked very closely with the business, helping them to find solutions from a financial perspective. So these guys would often interact with the specialist group for the areas where they need help on, right? And that's how we created this. And revolving all of these, what we did is put in a job rotation policy, whereby, over a period of time, the specialist will get a chance to become a finance business partner, vice versa, etc. So this way, not anybody is doing the same work repeatedly for a long time. And in finance, this is very critical that this kind of job rotation is done. So this is on the structure, the change that we did. And in the next slide, I'll talk briefly about the technology part of it. So this was one of the main spices that we used in the cooking, so to say. So one was we had multiple systems, so we broke it down, we brought it all down to a single source of truth, so that we reduce our time on reconciliations. And all the data, we have only one source, so it's it's the right one. We kind of looked at all the reports, we eliminated reports that were not required, then whatever was left, we standardized them and we then automated them. We started a concept of online dashboard. So any entry done in the accounting system gets reflected simultaneously on an online dashboard. So as a manager, I can see where my budget stands today based on what is actually spent versus what is also committed, like a purchase order has been issued, though it is not paid. What is the commitment that is already done, so that he can continuously monitor it against the against his or her annual budget, etc. Earlier, what used to happen was people will have to wait until the month end to get the report, and by that time, either it's too late or it's of no use. We also introduced the rolling forecast. So we had a scenario-based. We have a scenario-based forecasting tool where the latest information keeps getting updated. So you can have the year-end number always constantly being updated. The model that we adopted was minimum customization. So it was most of it was off-the-shelf product. So we just made sure that it was integrated on top of our existing ERP system, and that way our cost was lower. In the reporting, what we also did was we did a management by exception, which meant that we did not report unless there is something wrong. So the routine reports were kind of eliminated. So if everything is going wrong, we don't do any special report. Those can be seen anyway online by the people. So on the dashboard. We also introduced a lot of self-service tools. So this helped us, kind of reduce the burden on the finance department, because people could put in the requests like expense claim, etc., by going themselves, putting everything, attaching the documents, and then there is a system check on whether the policies they have been adhered to, etc. So a lot of finance time got freed up, which was used to do more value-added activities like what I mentioned, the finance business partnership, etc. On the next slide was the final thing, was the presentation. So as you know that even though the dish may be very good, unless the presentation is done, the value of the dish is not that great, right? So again, something that Kona covered was the storytelling. So after all what you do, how do you finally present it? How do you get people to action on it, right? So I have put in some points, but for me, the major one, what we trained our finance guys to do in the storytelling was always connect with the corporate strategy. Ultimately, everything that we do has to contribute towards, delivering that corporate strategy. So in the storytelling, we need to see how the story that we are telling or what the presentation we are doing connects it to the larger strategy of the group. This makes sure that everyone connects to it. The other point which we specifically did, and this may differ across organization, is we said, try to be as factual as possible, give all the data, but leave the decision to the audience. And yes, you can probably hint, but don't kind of, try to influence, because there are other experts like the marketing guys or the sales guys who may have better, kind of inclination than us. But at the same time, we provide the data and allow them to come to the conclusion. Of course, we give our contribution as well, but we don't try to overly influence them. Okay. And finally, in the next slide, yeah, this is one of my favorite quotation from Warren Buffett. So in summary, what I would like to say is it is impossible for us to predict what the future will bring. But at the same time, as finance leaders, it's our responsibility to think of what may happen and to ensure that the company is made ready to face that particular organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Amarnath. That's great presentation. It's absolutely clear to all of us. Even if you don't use exactly our terminology, such as architect, data scientist, or influencer, basically every FP&A transformation these days is focusing on these two types of roles: technology roles, really getting most of the data, and interpersonal roles, with storytelling, influencing, taking active seat at the table. Every organization would have own twist on that, but that's what we see as a trend right now. It brings us nicely to the second and last polling question of the webinar. But before I ask you a question, I would like to remind you all, ask questions to our panelists if you have questions too. Kona, to Amarnath, or to Vince already, you can ask them right now through our chat functionality. Please do so. We are already receiving interesting questions from you. And let's move on to the polling question. It will relate to our current focus. What roles are we focusing on developing right now? Let me launch this polling question. It goes like that. Which FP&A role is your organization focusing on developing next? It can be FP&A architect for technology integration, or it can be FP&A data scientist for deeper insights. It can be FP&A storyteller for better communication, or it can be FP&A influencer for strategic impact. Which one is your current focus? Which one do you feel needs to be developed the most? Is it architect for technology integration, or data scientist for deeper insights? Or maybe it is a storyteller for better communication, or an influencer for strategic impact. So many of you have voted so quickly. It's actually a majority by now. So I can close this poll and I can share the results with you. I'm very curious how we see. By the way, that's amazing result. We have almost even distribution. Okay, 29% go to architect and influencer, even answer, and 22% goes to data scientist and 20 to storyteller. Almost even. What do you think, Amarnath? Are you surprised?
No, I'm perfectly in sync because all four are very important. The influencer role is a corollary to the storyteller. So basically, you use your storytelling to influence the people in a soft way, like what we do, or maybe more, more assertively. And of course, the architect and the data scientist is obviously needed so that you have the right information to take decisions or to tell your story. So yes, I would say the good result because all four are important.
Great, exactly. I think the same that our audience sees as well, that all of them are important. And it brings us to the last discussion of the evening. How do you balance the need for technical skills and the interpersonal skills within your FP&A team? And I know that in a certain way you have answered through your presentations already, but I really would like to clearly express it here. So how to balance these two sides? And this time, let's start with you, Vince. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the role, the ability to influence, right? That's probably my theme here. I do stand by. I feel that FP&A have a real ability to influence the business, and therefore you'll find that there's a move towards finance owned, right? And FP&A owned is probably what we should be using as a point in terms of activating the ability to storytell. And you know, and roles like the finance business partner, it's pleasing for me to see those roles start to be advertised, right? And credit to you, Amarnath. I think I was listening to your story and just thinking that's a great response, right? Post-pandemic, really elevating, and it sounds to me that you've been transitioning, you know, and building the role of the finance business partners. But I will call out, I think the fox in all of this is really the specialist, right? And it's how do you find those people is probably where I will leave you. The best thing is they already exist. There's an element of a data scientist, and you know who they are in your business, and they're bursting at wanting to be the finance business partner, or there's an element of storytelling that you could coach them with, and really is probably encourage you to look for those, you know, for those individuals and those special individuals within your business.
Right. Thank you, Vince. And let me move on to you, Connor. What do you think? How do you balance need for technical and interpersonal skills?
Yeah, actually, what Vince just said, he's right. It's if you find those people who've got the technical skill, who really want to get out and partner, don't stop them. Yeah, release them from the desktop, because they're and the rest of us just loves them because they just know how to suddenly make things work for them, how to translate that and automate that thing that has been taking them forever. Suddenly this person waltzes in and fixes it for them. They're just like, they put them on a pedestal basis. So definitely, yeah, make it happen for them. But I think it is constant balance, and I think it waxes and wanes the whole time, because I've gone through my own phases of saying I need more tech, I need more digital based people, I need more people who know SQL, and I'm going to make everyone learn Python, and then I'll flick to, no, you can't be all of that. You need to have the soft skills and the ability to go out and speak to the business, and the time to go out and speak to the business as well. So I don't think there's an easy answer to this one. I think it's one that you just keep trying to work at and try to find it, and proactively respond to what the business needs and do your best to respond at the right time in the right way.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And let's move on to you, Amarnath. What do you have to add? How do we balance these two types of skills?
Okay, let me quote Eliyahu Goldratt, who said, tell me how you'll measure me, and I'll tell you how I behave. You know, so having probably the right kind of KPIs for people, where you encourage them to kind of adopt technical skills and interpersonal skills both, because what I find is finance people are not naturally inclined to do interpersonal skills, so they need a little bit of pushing. So maybe having it in the KPI will help. And obviously what the other point that I mentioned was the job rotation. So when you do job rotation, automatically, you know, the people will have both the skills in their organization. So that could be another way of doing it.
Great. Two great tips here from Amarnath. Thank you all for your answers. And it brings us nicely to the presentation by Vince Randall. Vince will be speaking about elevating FP&A through technology. Vince, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Olga. And once again, thank you for the opportunity. I think what I'll start off with here, team, is really a statement. And that is, in a recent survey of CFOs, it was found that 50% of CFOs admit that they make gut instinct decisions. And, you know, I think there's a common theme here, right? And I'm sure you all agree with this, is that change is the constant, right, in today's business world. And that does seem to be the norm for us all post-pandemic. And really, as this macro stage continues to evolve and at a very rapid pace now, your company's ability to navigate that change will be the difference between growth and survival of the business. And it's your ability as a company to make faster decisions will make the difference. And as we transition to the next slide, what I'm concluding on this slide is gut instinct decision making is no longer acceptable, and there's a better way, and FP&A really holds the key to improving that situation. And the reality that really confines business, and in particular finance, is the reality of the systems within FP&A, and meaning that you've got multiple people, multiple systems and processes across multiple departments, even within finance. and across the organization that's running your own planning processes, meaning that you're duplicating the same data multiple times against the same customer record, the same supplier record, the same employee record. And what you tend to find in these organizations is a disconnected data silo of that same information. And what it unfortunately leads to is FP&A consolidating everything in spreadsheets. And another trend that we tend to see is departments within companies will go off and drive a disconnected planning process, meaning that they're running their own individual modeling tools outside of a corporate finance plan. And what this further compounds is, as a result of incomplete data that drives poor analysis. There's inconsistency in that in the assumptions that go into your planning process, and just a general lack of collaboration across departments. And really is that missed opportunity to act because of the disparity of the analysis of this information, and that you don't have single data sources. And what it does also do is challenge, and what you also see is the challenge of integrating and managing the magnitude of modeling tools and spreadsheets that you've now created. And further compounding all of that is the challenges around managing the security and the user accesses and other security related requirements. And this is before you deal with the challenge of what additional computing capacity or storage that you normally require when you need more data to complete the analysis. And this challenge makes it really difficult for you as an organization to scale and support that growing demand for analysis and the growing demand for data. And as we transition here to the next slide, is that this complex IT environment that supports most businesses today really, being a disparate, disconnected, reactive environment is really not only expensive in terms of cost, but also in terms of your valuable time. And what you should be aiming for is really a modern experience for FP&A, meaning a couple of things. One, ease of use, meaning a self-service experience, when Aminad touched a little bit on, right? Meaning no coding or scripting in terms of how you make changes to your models, and that it's easy to maintain, as in it's finance owned. A modern experience brings in built-in analytics, meaning that it gives active dashboards that instantly reflects changes. It has plugins for familiar reporting and real-time insights that it delivers to you. Flexibility, meaning unlimited dimensions, allowing you as the user to test and analyze on the fly using real-time data. And time to value, meaning faster time to deployment. There's a lot of best practice that's available out of the box in terms of financial intelligence that it delivers, but also automating the time-consuming tasks that normally go into planning processes. And then scalability and performance is really, you need to be looking for a solution that handles the complex interconnected modeling, but also delivers you the high performance with the fast response times, with ML really being at the center and being embedded into that experience. Meaning that a modern experience means that everybody plans in your organization on a single data model, a single source of truth, and operate a planning process that is continuous, meaning that you're not just making the updates, but you're also driving that rolling forecast across the business throughout the year. So as we transition now to the next slide, what I want to touch on next is really what Connor touched on earlier, is AI and ML and the opportunity that presents for FP&A. And starting with AI and ML really needs to be embedded within an application, right? And it's something that you should expect from when you're going to technology vendors, is that you should demand for this and you should therefore expect it. But what does it mean then for FP&A? It means that it offers an alternative to programming a system with predefined sets of rules, and that the system has the ability to learn and to identify patterns as it receives that data, and that it allows to detect patterns in that data, make a prediction based on those patterns, but also recommend actions for you as the operator and as the user. So some practical experiences or use cases that are available is anomaly detection, meaning the capability to alert planners when user inputs fall outside of normal or historical ranges. Things like outlier reporting, where it compares machine learning driven forecasts with a planner's forecast, identifying accounts with significant differences. Or the other use case is ML Forecaster, where you're driving an element of predictive demand forecasts based on historical data, but as well as incorporating additional regressors or external data that that bring other points of influence of the results for that prediction. And an example of that is a very large retailer that operates in North America, where what they do is they use machine learning to forecast the number of customers that will stop by their individual stores at various times of the day. And then they feed that data into the company's sales and workforce plans. And what the machine learning also does for them is that it helps them to forecast the number of products that they need to have in stock at each store, and therefore helping to drive more automation in terms of the replenishment. So as we transition here to the next slide, I started with 50% of CFOs make gut instinct decisions. And really the reality is that change is the certainty. And what you should demand or expect from a modern experience is not only being able to attract talent, right, but also more importantly is helping you to retain your people, retain your talent through transforming their roles to be more of the finance business partner, to be the storyteller, to find that technical gem within your organization and help them grow as they facilitate more accurate and faster decision making within your organization. And with that, if we roll the next slide, is thank you very much, and just appreciative of everybody's time today.
Thank you so much, Vince, for your presentation and actually speaking about how technology can enhance our FP&A roles. Thank you to all the audience for all your questions. Actually, for the sake of time, I will jump to our Q&A session right away, since I really want to answer at least some of the questions we received. So please join me on the camera and let's start. Let's jump right into it. Connor, I have a very special question for you from the audience, and it goes like that. Is being an introvert a weakness for an FP&A professional? Please share your thoughts.
No. No, I don't think it is at all. And conversely, being too much of an extrovert can also either be a positive or a negative. I think the most important thing, regardless of your personality type, is to recognize it and know what your personality type is and know how you're going to respond in certain situations or how other people are going to respond to you, and learn how to manage it. So if you know you're an introvert and not particularly comfortable in a meeting or to speak up, find ways to work through it. It's probably a subject of a whole separate webinar. But I think embrace the introvert, because you're not going to be the only introvert, and there's a lot of people you're going to be working out and partnering with business that are also introverts.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very encouraging for all of us introverts. And let me find this question for Amarnath, because actually I have one addressed specifically to you, and that is about your transition, your transformation. So in setting up the new structure of FP&A team, how did the panel overcome the challenge of finding the right people for the job? So please share with us.
Okay, so what we did was, once we decided that this is the organization that we want to do, so we kind of, so there were certain roles which were anyway going to the shared service center, right? The first one of accounting. So that was pretty simple. Then what was left was the specialist roles and the finance business partner roles. So there again, we kind of asked for feedback from people on what they would like to do. And then we also had a certain inclination that this guy may be more fitted for the finance business partner role, though he or she themselves may not be very keen. So we kind of coached them and kind of encouraged them, saying that you should have a look at it. And in any case, we had the job rotation. So after 2-3 years, if you feel that that's not something that you would like to do, they could come back to being a specialist, etc. But overall, we try to encourage that you do a different kind of role so that you become a more rounded financial person and not just having focus on one area.
Right. Thank you for that. That's a rotation is a very good tip for all of us. Vince, I have a question for you as well, and it's really forward-looking. What do you think? How FP&A skill set should change with the spread of artificial intelligence and machine learning? So what we should learn or probably stop doing with the spread of machine learning?
Yeah, no, do you know what? I think there's a fear, I think, in FP&A that hopefully I can help alleviate here, and that is this. I believe that AI and ML will not replace FP&A jobs. I believe that AI and ML will only empower and drive, like, your ability as an individual in FP&A with ML and AI will be exponentially 10, 20 times more powerful, right? So I think there's the role that technology should bring you is the ability to drive your effectiveness. Like you're going to be the rock star, the superhero of your organization.
Right. The key is only to start working with new technology, not to leave it aside. Well, thank you all for your answers. I actually have many more questions. We'll try to answer some of them in writing. So, dear panelists, expect us to send you some questions so that our audience can get some more answers. But we are already approaching the end of our webinar. So what I want to do next is I want to, first of all, invite our audience to the next upcoming event in the Digital Pan-Asian FP&A Circle about the winning formula of integrated FP&A. Great topic. Please join us on the 25th of June this year. The next thing I really would like you to do is, first of all, read our FP&A trend survey from the last year, 2023, if you have not read it already. So follow this link in your handouts and you can read it. If you want to participate in this year's survey, 2024, you certainly can do that. We'll be happy if you do that. Follow another link over here. Let me thank our technology sponsor again, Workday Adaptive Planning, that helps you solve your greatest business challenges. And if you're not connected with us yet, there are many ways to do so. The first of all, you can subscribe to our FP&A Trends Digest, you can connect to our LinkedIn community, or you can follow us on YouTube or follow us on X. So many ways to stay with us, to stay connected. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's a great thank you to all our speakers and panelists for sharing your insights, for sharing your practical experience. Thank you so much for being with us. Goodbye, everyone. See you at the next event. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Olga. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, Amana.
Thanks, Manaf.